I just want to have my own password though. User account. Because I don't want to again
Change
log out.
password.
So do you want me to log
password.
out?
So click on your name thing up top.
Yeah.
Go to user accounts.
Yeah.
And then right at the top where it says details is say update or change password.
Details.
Change pass.
Okay, change pass. Okay, perfect. Woohoo. Password. Thank you very much.
No problem.
I'll just test it again. Not sure why they locked in the first place, but
system kicks people every once in a while for no good reason.
Okay. MS just to verify who you are, or
No, space monkeys. No particular reason for it.
Sounds good. Do you ever read the book The Magic of Thinking Big?
Yeah, I've heard of it, never read it. No.
Yeah, the David J. Schwartz one that's all positive thinking on how to put it into practice.
I've heard about it. I've never read it.
Yeah, I'm gonna read it at chapters. It seems like an interesting book. It's published since 1987.
Oh, okay.
It's an older book, but it gives you quite a bit of insight on how to keep positive and how to apply that to your everyday life. It helps with those who are like exceptional in sales, for instance.
'21. I got 23 or 22. Who am I missing?
Or have you ever used the app Kinu?
What's that?
Have you ever used the app called Kinu?
Emu?
Kinu. Kinnu.
No, I've never heard of it.
It's an entrepreneurship app. That's why I was asking.
Nope, never heard of it.
It's the history of entrepreneurship.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so something that I read before I even came to your class.
Nice.
Yeah, it tells you how to do your proper business storytelling and so forth. Like you can study pretty much anything you want on this app. Like for instance, like science fiction or geology. Okay. Yeah, mental health, so forth. Yeah, human rights. Kind of gives you a principle of all things. It's basically to enhance your learning and your memory.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So it like tests you. For instance, like you'll read like through the whole thing, and then it'll test you on what you've actually read and what you've comprehended. And then it'll come back to you, let's say a week or a half or 2 weeks later, and it'll say, hey, do you remember this?
Kinu.
Yeah, it's called Kinu. It's quite interesting. I recommend it for all of your students. It really helps with your understanding of how entrepreneurship, as well as like it gives you the history of it.
Nice. I'll have to check it out for sure.
Yeah, it's from agriculture trading to big techs. The story is how people have built their business throughout human history.
Adobe. All right, that's who I was missing. Now I've got 23. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 16, 17, 18.
Mr. Derek, do you know Adobe and I, we're new friends, right?
Are you? Glorious.
I can make Adobe work out with her introverted life. Gotta make her extrovert and happier again. It's the biggest challenge for me.
So many questions on that one now. Oh my. Poor Dopey. I don't know if I envy you or pity you at this point.
I'm so sorry for myself right now, but I believe friendship with her will help a lot. So thanks, Fatima, for extending your hand of friendship. I appreciate that.
I absolutely could not agree more, for sure. Okay, what are we missing here? Why am I not seeing? I can't wait until they update the system on my end so I can not have to scroll through 60 random students to find the people who are in our class. So I'm still missing somebody, and I cannot figure out who I'm missing.
I'll test the class while you wait. What type of entrepreneur is skilled at coming up with unique ideas and implementing them in a way that doesn't seem thought of before? Is it an investor or an innovator? Newcomers?
I will be an innovator.
Boom. There you go.
What am I missing?
How many pairs of shoes does Tom donate as a 2020? It's a company. Tom's Shoes, TOMs.
What was that?
100,000 shoes they donate, called Tom's. They're talking about like entrepreneurships, like from like 1961 and so forth, 1945, and before how what actually boomed and what country boomed after the war. Like who purchased McDonald's in 1961, 20 years after it was founded?
Oh, then I'm trying to remember the name of the guy who's the founder. They call him the founder.
Oh, I
Ray
think
Kroc.
it's my dad, my granddad.
What's that?
My granddad to purchase McDonald's that time.
Yeah, it's Ray Kroc.
It's my granddad. Yeah.
Your granddad?
Yeah, he told me he purchased McDonald's too that time.
Nice.
So yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna leave it for now. If you see that you're missing attendance or absent today, let me know because I absolutely can't figure out who I'm missing on this list.
Attendance.
Yeah, no idea. No idea. All right. So, good morning, everyone. I hope everybody passed a great weekend. Just 1 second here. We have another one that can't get into IT. Wendy, what's the email to IT? Is it just IT at Oulton College? I can't remember what did you have to send email to today?
I think I
Admin?
sent email
Or
to
not
textbooks.
No, not Wendy. Mano. What did you send your?
Oh, to admin. I went directly to my email and I sent it to admin. The website directly to go to is one second. You have to go to netadmin@oultoncollege.com.
Netadmin@oultoncollege.com. Cool. I'm
Yeah.
sending it to you now. Oulton.
Because I had to reset mine for AMP.
There you go. Netadmin@oultoncollege.com. There we go. Perfect. Yeah, so every a couple times during the weekend, at least once every weekend, they do these resets and these reboots to the systems. So don't be surprised that you'll get up one day and all of a sudden you don't have access to anything and you just have to send an email to somebody asking for access again. It happens even to us as instructors. So, Storm, question.
Can you put that email in the chat so I could just copy it?
Yeah, certainly. Give me 1 second. Chat. There you go. In the chat for any and everyone who needs it. Perfect. All right. I'm just going to share screen here for a second. That's the wrong screen. I blew up there. I didn't want to do this. There we go. Okay. This screen. Now, if you guys don't have access to AMP Educator, you probably don't have access to this textbook today, do you? I'll show you here now. That's our textbook. That's what it looks like for this course.
The Business 101 grant?
Yeah, Business 101, changing a changing world. Is that do you guys have access to that? Is that either through O'Reilly's or is it only through your AMP Educator?
AMP Educator and Bookshelf.
Okay, so it's in your bookshelf as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Needs to be 365.
I'm just gonna let everybody have a look to see it to make sure that you guys all have it. But we are going to get into that today.
Is it the 7th edition?
It is, yes.
Yes, we have it.
7th Canadian edition.
Yes, we have it in our bookshelf saved.
How do you gain access
Perfect.
to the bookshelf? Keep changing them.
It's an app, man. You have to download it in your.
For the bookshelf, did you guys have to sign into your student email? Because I can't do that.
The bookshelf is an app you have to download in your app store.
Whatever they require for email, just put all the emails of yours of Oulton College. If it requires, it does not matter. If it doesn't, just download.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay,
So not everybody has access to it right now, is what you're telling me?
Text.
I'll let you guys. I'll give you guys a couple seconds to try to sort through that before I get into the PowerPoint. If you can't find it, don't have access to it, need a password or something, obviously the email is textbooks@oultoncollege.com. I'll type that in the chat as well.
We have the C books. Is that the one you're talking about?
The what?
The C books, the one they had us reset the passwords?
I have no. The only book that I'm looking for to make sure you guys have is this one here.
All right. History. My courses. Yeah, see, it's only bringing me up the new Microsoft 65 and Words 6. It's only bringing those two courses up. Computer applications. Business.
Oh, that's in your AMP?
No, it's in the My Courses.
What's My Courses?
Well, that's where you see your book.
Oh, is it?
Like, for instance, like where we're supposed to see Business 101, but it's not showing it. It's only showing the class for Mr. Grant.
Does anybody else not
Oh,
have
good.
access to that book? Hands up if you're just kind of put that raise hand thing up if you do or do not. If you do not have it.
I only have O'Reilly Eat That
Storm
Frog.
doesn't have it. Mano, Michael.
No.
Everybody else is good. Adam, you don't have it either. Jean Blaise.
Even when I try to search for it. Business.
Adobe.
A changing world.
Where are we at? Miriam. Okay,
Yeah.
so what I would recommend to everybody who doesn't have it is send an email right now to textbooks@oultoncollege.com and just say to Rowan, hey, I don't have access to this book. Can I get at least an instruction sheet or something to get to it? Because from what I understood, I thought was supposed to be built into that one, specifically into AMP Educator. And then
Okay, so you can get access to it if you go back to your home. That's what I found. Back to your home, you'll see it says My Books. You should be able to have access there. I just got access.
okay, you got access by going to
That's the
Home
tech
and
one.
My Books.
What's the name of the
Yes.
textbook?
The name of the textbook
Business
is this
Changing
right here. Oh, where'd it go?
Let me see.
Nope. Hold on. Stop sharing. Share. Name of the textbook is this. A Changing World. That's what the cover should look like.
Is it the seventh edition?
It is, yeah. The 7th edition. You got it, sir. Yes.
Okay, yeah. Canadian English. Okay.
Try bookmarking it again. Done.
All right. So Jean Blaise, you found it?
Yes, sir.
And Michael, have you found it yet?
Not yet, sir.
Oops.
Who else? Adobe, I saw you had a hand up. Did you? And Shayo. So we'll give you guys just a couple seconds to get on there. And Storm, you were another one. Were you able to find it in there? Or I think you needed an email to get into your system, did you?
Yeah, I needed an email. I'm just waiting on it. Like for a response.
The Trials and Tribulations of Technology. Yeah. Here we go. Yeah, we want to make sure everybody has everything now and we know and are aware of it sooner rather than later. That is the book. Yes. Who's sharing that?
I was sharing it to show you that I got access.
There you go. Perfect. Right. Who else had the hands up? Who was having issues opening up that book?
That's the book I was recommending.
Okay. All right.
I did run into one issue when sending it on Teams, just to let you know. If your title is too long for what you saved it as, it will not let you put it on your thing. So if you notice that it is shortened out, that's why.
What's that?
Like when you try attaching, when you're trying to save the file under a certain name, like for instance, we say business 101 and your name, we put our name. If it's too long, it won't let it save there. It won't let you send it. So that's why I sent it to email. Yeah, so that's why I sent it through email, and I also sent it through Teams, but I shortened it out, as you noticed. I had no choice because it wouldn't let you to attach it. So I was like, okay.
Interesting. Okay, that's different.
Because I was trying to send it. Yeah, it bounces it back.
I shouldn't do that.
Because it doesn't allow you to save it too long. Only in Teams. It didn't do anything for email, only in Teams. Just so if anyone else runs into that. Because I was trying to describe the course correctly and what chapter we were doing. And it was like, nope, too long. I was like, okay.
Interesting. That's really okay.
Because I got my unicorn anyways. When I sent it, it said, unicorn.
No, it doesn't make any sense because the file name and the file length shouldn't make a difference for being able to do that.
Yeah, it does when you're attaching it. It'll give you an error immediately. It'll say it's too long, cannot attach. Shorten it. I'm like, okay.
All right. Recap. Anybody else cannot or do not have access to their books that haven't already sent an email to Oulton College, or sorry, textbooks at oultoncollege.com. We'll be using, this is a key textbook to have as well, because this will be used over both semesters. So this book here specifically is going to be used for business basics, and it'll be used for some of the combined courses next semester to help you through some of your papers, assignments, and topics. Human resource is going to be one of them. We refer back to this one a little bit, business management and business fundamentals. So this is a book that we're going to refer to over 2 semesters. So you definitely want to have access to this. Obviously sooner than later. We're only going to touch in a little bit on chapter 1, chapter 2 here today. All right. So again, if you don't have it or if you're having any issues, please send emails to the emails below, just so that everybody can get it updated in the next couple of days. Why is this not opening here? There we go. Where are we at? And because we are usually business law is done in first semester, but it is not this year for you. What happened?
I can't see anyone on the screen other than Mr. Dag.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that.
That's correct.
Can anyone see me?
No.
Nope.
No.
No.
What happened there?
I'll save myself for myself.
No.
Nope.
We all just disappeared. I thought I have.
Adiola just came back.
I can't see anyone too.
I didn't disable cameras for attendees, so I don't know why Larissa's coming back. Fatima's there. That was kind of weird. All right. There you go. Like I said, always something going on in the background on the IT side.
I can only see you, Mr. Dag, so I think it's the system problem.
Oh, you can't? I can see all you guys.
But we can't see you. Only we can see you, but not the other guys.
Okay, let's do this. Everybody log out and log back in. So leave and then come back in.
Okay.
But we will this year because of the fact that you don't have law until second semester. Chapter 2 is business ethics and social responsibility. We get into we will get more in depth into business ethics and social responsibility this year because you're not going to have business law until the second semester. So we can dive a little bit more into that. I usually generally try to leave the business ethics and social responsibility part to Chris on the law side because I know you guys do quite an in-depth thing. But what we will do this semester is um, touch base on kind of the foundations of that business ethics and social responsibility in business. What is it? What are the new kind of trends that are happening with corporate social responsibility in particular? That's a really big thing these days. CSR, corporate social responsibility. This is another course where again you won't have any tests. You will have quizzes, but they're not going to be difficult by any means. It's literally just going to be some take home multiple choice to see if you understand definitions of certain things. Because it is good that you have a base foundation understanding of definitions for words if they ever come up in conversation. So you will have these little take home multiple choice questions, but again, not a test per se. And again, all that will be open book, so no worries about that. But in the meantime, if you haven't been able to correct your textbook issue, again, please feel free to, and I'll put it back up in. Oh, beautiful thing is it's still in the chat. It's still in the chat from earlier, so that's the good thing there. NetAdmin at oultoncollege.com if you're having issues on your end, and then textbooks at oultoncollege.com if you're still having issues with your textbooks. Those of you who did not happen to get, where is it? This book, and I mentioned it to you the other day. Can you see that? Probably not. For some reason, it doesn't come in. Oh, there it is. Workplace culture, Canadian workplace culture. For those of you who did not get that already, you have to send an email to textbooks at oultoncollege.com. I'm guessing that Rowan will hand those out to you individually, but that is another textbook that we will be going into. There you go. Perfect. That's the other textbook we'll be going into with business communications, which is the other course that we have online tomorrow. I don't know why that won't focus in on that, but anyhow, that's what the book looks like. That's what the book's called, Mastering the Unspoken Rules by Matt Adolfi. And we'll be jumping back and forth between that book and Eat That Frog on Tuesdays when we have business communication. We won't jump into that book just yet this week because I know there's a few of you as of last week that did not have that book. But in the meantime, like I said, send an email to textbooks at oultoncollege.com to get Rowan on top of that again sooner than later because we will be getting into that within the next couple of weeks for sure. Definitely almost after Thanksgiving. So let's start with chapter 1. And I want to share screen. Here we go. So load that up so I can see it over here. So everybody can see the dynamics of business and economics, chapter 1 for a changing world. So what we're going to do here is just go into a little bit more of the basics and the foundations of business. We went over the history of business the other day. That video, I think, was a really great thing because it kind of summarized a whole lot of information in a 20-minute video, which was kind of really great to kind of get that out of the way. We're going to talk a little bit more of some more technical things right now about business. We're not going to waste a whole heck of a lot of time on a lot of this stuff here because it's mostly just fluff, but again, on a terminology, instance, a situation, you want to be able to know words and definitions if they were ever to come up in certain business contexts. So, why are we not going there? Here we go. So learning objectives for chapter 1. So basic concepts such as business, products, and profit. Identify the main participants and activities of business and explain why studying business is important. Define economics and compare the 4 types of economic systems. Describe the role of supply, demand, competition, free enterprise system. Specify why and how the health of the economy is measured, trace the evolution of the Canadian economy, and discuss the role of entrepreneur in the economy. So that is a whole lot of different things kind of rammed into one chapter. We're going to touch base on a few of them because the section of 1.6, trace the evolution of the Canadian economy and discuss the role of the entrepreneur in the economy, is a really, really interesting thing and a really important discussion right now because when we all attended, everybody who was in attendance for the financial meeting we had at NBCC last week, there was a question about the role of taxes on, or they talked about, the new tax codes on small businesses over the last 5 to 8 years. So since really 2017, all the changes that have been made to the Canadian tax code for small businesses, and mostly all that is due to the federal government and the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who is trying to destroy small business in Canada. His words exactly: small businesses who make less than $1 million a year are just trying to what did he say exactly? Are just trying to essentially launder money, right? So in his mind, if you're a small business and you're not making $1 million a year, if you make less than $1 million, which most small businesses do, you're just trying to hide money. You're not a legitimate business. So he's been making it very, very hard for entrepreneurs to start up businesses and maintain in business. Because he wants all the business to go to the big box stores, the retail chains, so Walmart's, Costco's, that sort of stuff. Try to get rid of the mom and pop stores. But sadly, he's not intelligent enough to realize that I think we do it a little bit. Actually, it might even be in here in chapter 1, and I'm not going to jump the gun too much on it unless it's in here. Give me a second. It's not in these slides. I'll have to find it. Actually, I think it was human resource management, which we do in second semester. We end up finding out that small business makes up something near the line of 70% of all employment in Canada. So
गेम के
small
चक्कर में मैं कुछ भी छोड़
business
सकता
makes
था
up that
मुझे इतना
large a
शौक है खेलने
number.
का कि मैं उसके चक्कर में
And
कुछ भी छोड़
small
सकता हूँ
business,
फिर
so
उसी में आगे
the
क्यों नहीं बढ़े?
definition of
क्योंकि
small
अच्छे नहीं
business
खेलते थे ना
is anybody with, I think, less than 200 employees. That's considered small business. I have to go back and look at that again. If you're considered a small business, small businesses employ something like 60 or 70% of Canadians. So with a small business, we have no economy. So if you're really trying to attack the small business person, the entrepreneur, all you're doing is hurting the Canadian economy. So, but we'll get into that a little bit further here as we get into this chapter here today. So go back to sharing screen. We'll start off with, move this out of the way. So the nature of business, try to earn profits by providing products that satisfy people's needs. So we've already gone over that: tangible goods, services, ideas. So you're either offering a product or a service, or obviously an account. Accountants and attorneys provide ideas for solving problems. But again, accountants and attorneys basically are service providers when you look at it that way. Tangible goods, we've already talked about that with the video last week. I mean, everybody is in business to make money, ultimately, at the end of the day. If not, you're not going to be a very successful business person, or you're not going to have doors open for long unless you happen to have some really great funders who don't believe in making money, which are very few and far between. Again, we discussed last week, the goal of business is to earn a profit. So not-for-profit organizations, we didn't really talk about that, but not-profits do not share the purpose of earning profits. May provide goods or services, engage in fundraising, engage in management, marketing, and finance to reach goals. So it is actually a very good point to talk about not-for-profits as we're talking about businesses. Does everybody here have a good idea, understanding about what not-for-profits are? Who doesn't know what a not-for-profit is? Who can tell me what a not-for-profit is?
A service?
Network profit is the overall profit from the businesses after cutting the tax and all that. Net profit, right?
Not net, not for.
Uh,
A not-for-profit
There now.
is a social enterprise set up to provide a social good.
A social good. All right, perfect. Who can give me examples of not-for-profits?
Can I do cheating by searching on Google?
No. Should know this off the top of your head. Nobody's allowed
Charity?
to search this. Give me an example of a not-for-profit.
Charity?
Maison Nazareth.
Charity, not for profit?
Red Cross.
Red Cross. Perfect. Red Cross. Perfect example of a not-for-profit. What else?
Charities are not for profit.
The
I know
Maison
charities
Nazareth.
are, but
The House
give me a name. Give
Nazareth.
me a name of something that's a not-for-profit.
Firefighters?
No, firefighters don't count. They're a service provider
What
funded by
what
the taxpayer.
House of Nazareth, the homeless shelter.
House of Nazareth would
WWF
definitely be a not-for-profit. Michael, did you say something?
WWF
World Wildlife Foundation. Yep, that's a not-for-profit. What else?
Please, what of the shelter homes?
A lot of the shelter homes, yes, they're definitely well, I mean, not a lot of them. All of them are not-for-profit because they're providing a service, or well, technically they're filling a gap that
What
the
about
public sector. What's that?
government?
Sorry, Fatima?
What about government subsidies and grants?
You're talking now, see, when you're talking about like charities, government subsidies, and grants and all that sort of stuff, you're really talking about things that are available to not-for-profits. Not-for-profits absolutely get government subsidies. Not-for-profits absolutely get grants. Um,
UNICEF is an example of not for
UNICEF
profit.
is another great example of a not-for-profit,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm.
Most zoos are actually not-for-profit.
What about beaches?
What about what?
Beach.
Beaches. I don't know that there's a way to monetize a beach or make it a not-for-profit, although that's an interesting sort of concept when you think of it that way. But no, beaches don't count. Beaches don't count, right? So essentially what not-for-profit is, not-for-profits were made in order to fill a gap that was missing in the public service sector. So because we can all agree the governments can't handle everything that come up in everyday situations with society. So the homeless crisis, feeding elderly people, clothing people that can't afford those basic services. Those generally fall into the not-for-profit organization sectors because somebody's realized, okay, here's a gap that the government and the public and private sectors aren't really identifying and are missing. So that's where the not-for-profits come in. Somebody realizes that, there are communities in sub-Sahara Africa in desert that don't have good running quality water. So they come in and they dig wells, right? That is a not-for-profit. You know the big ones, UNICEF, Red Cross, the International Red Cross is definitely one of the biggest and most well-known not-for-profits. Anybody here ever seen those Salvation Army people? And they usually only come out around Christmas time, and you'll see them standing up, and they've usually got like it's like a red pole, and it's got like a big donation basket, and they're usually standing there sounding a bell or sitting. Usually most of the time you get at the senior people sitting there collecting donations. Again, that's another not-for-profit, Salvation Army.
Like diabetes, for instance, they do that as well. They pick up clothes.
Yeah, Cancer Society, Diabetic Society. So again, trying to raise money and raise awareness for certain social topics that the government isn't resolving or having issues with. So again, one of these things that it's an interesting sector to look at because as much as not-for-profits are technically there to not make a profit, people get very, 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 very wealthy running not-for-profit businesses. Now, this was quite a few years ago when I was going to school and I did my undergrad in the US. Not-for-profit was actually one of the main key focus points you could have majored in university was not-for-profit business. And I remember saying to myself, that kind of seems pointless. Why would I go into a business of something I can't make money on? And at the time, I'm trying to remember what it was. It was the second fastest way to become a millionaire back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Now, this is obviously before the technological boom and internet and Instagram and YouTube, and now you have all these social influencers. But it was the number 2 fastest way to become a millionaire? Can anybody imagine or guess what the number one fastest way to become a millionaire was? And probably, actually, I think it still is.
It's impossible for me to think non-for-profit businesses can become millionaires. How is that possible?
I will explain that to you in a second, and then you're going to be like, oh my gosh, you can't be serious. But the rules are a little bit different in Canada than they are in the US, but it still works out the same way. So who can tell me what's the number one way? I believe it's still the number one way to become a millionaire.
Startups.
Startup, but more specifically, what startup? Startup what?
Technology.
Technology is a good one. Not everybody's technologically savvy. And actually, I have to double check what the most current numbers are on that. But back when I was coming out of my undergrad, the number one way to become a millionaire was to start your own religion.
Oh, yeah.
Believe it or not, start your own religion. But
Unbelievable.
Fatima,
Unbelievable. Oh my God.
that's true. That was the number one way to become a millionaire.
I'm gonna start doing all these things now.
Start your own religion. Yeah, they don't. So, and Fatima, to go back to your point, your question is how can you run or organize a not-for-profit and become a millionaire? Well, it's all in the details, because when you're a not-for-profit, technically you're not supposed to make money. Does anybody remember, anybody here, it was a big controversy, and I want to say it's probably been about 10 years now that this was a big controversy. I believe it was companies
Mr.
like
Kevin
Walmart.
Rogers.
Yeah, no worries. I believe it was companies like Walmart. I think Walmart was the biggest one that got into trouble, which kind of spiraled everything downhill for a lot of businesses. So I think about 10 years ago, somebody was kind of overseeing the financials of Walmart and were asking why they were writing off as a for-profit company, they're writing off so much money in charitable donations, because it was something absurd. It was something like $1 billion a year in charitable donations. And then somebody went and investigated, and it's like, why is Walmart writing that off? Where were they investing this $1 billion a year out of their finances? Again, Walmart being a publicly traded company, as a shareholder, I want to know that, okay, well, if we're making that much money and you're giving $1 billion away, I must be losing money somewhere. So it kind of works both ways. But anyhow, what Walmart were doing was, has anybody gone to Walmart and then just as you're checking out on the screen, it comes up
Yeah,
and says,
they ask for donation.
it asks for donations, right? So as consumers, everybody was going there just offering these donations. So people would go, yeah, sure, I'll drop $1, I'll drop $2, whatever it was. And so with something like, I think they have currently something like 7,500 stores worldwide. So all those billions of people going to Walmart a year were making all these donations. And Walmart was using those donations to write it off against their profits. And this really spiraled downhill for a lot of those businesses, because, again, it's kind of a sneaky way of claiming more profitable gains. And so, anyhow, when you run a not-for-profit organization, how much, let's say, for example, the Cancer Society. Fatima, if you donate $20 to the Cancer Society for cancer research for the Cancer Foundation, how much of that money do you expect should be going to cancer research?
At least $5.
At least $5. So 25%.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else? If you had to donate $20 to Cancer Society or diabetes or November's coming up, so big thing over here for those of you who are unaware of it in Canada is something called Movember. And it's a movement for prostate cancer. So you're going to start seeing all these Canadian guys in the month of November start growing up these big, ugly, dirty stashes. Pretty scary if you ask me. But anyhow, you donate. So Cameron decides he's going to try to grow something over his upper lip, and I'm going to donate $50 to Cameron. I would expect that if I'm donating $50 to Cameron to do this for a month, that all $50 is going to go back into prostate cancer research or whatever it is. Does anybody else agree? No, you don't agree?
It's probably lower.
By law, they only have to donate 5% or return 5% into the actual charity itself. So where does the other 95% go?
They take it for their own businesses.
Right? So
Yeah.
if I get $100 million donation over a year, I only have to put $5 million back into the actual charity. The other $95 million can go into the private jet that I need, obviously, to fly back and forth to all these charitable functions. I'm the CEO of the not-for-profit. I get to have a paid salary, right? Who makes the decision on how much I get paid?
Of course, the owner.
Me, right? So I think my time is worth $50 million a year.
And all these games of donations and all the systems. So that's why I can get to it.
So that's the really interesting,
it's
tricky part.
It's actually a scam, to be honest, Mr. Derek, because this happens a lot everywhere, even in Dubai. They want donation, they're gonna just appeal up like we're going through all this, but most of the percentage, the net, it's gonna be in their own businesses, and just a half of the portion, like 5%, is gonna be into the donation and all.
Yep. One of the biggest scams, and to me, and I still don't know how it operates. Well, I mean, I do, because a lot of people make a lot of money. You got to pay off a lot of. Do you ever find it really interesting how every time there's like one of these big natural disasters, you've got these online sites that immediately like raise funds for Hurricane Katrina, raise funds for the tsunami?
These are all scams. These are all scams. Even when we get it on the call, I just got the call like your credit card is off. I mean, there is some problem. You need to reset and all. These are all scams, and it actually happens
all the time. All the time. And that is true, again, the not-for-profit side of it, because, again, technically speaking, they only have to they only have to, by law, put back in a certain amount to the actual charity. Right? So it's a really, really interesting thing. Now, that's not to say that you don't actually have legitimate charities doing good things. Yes, you absolutely do. The local Harvest House, great charity, does some great things. I'm trying to think of some of the other local not-for-profit charitable organizations. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but there are some really legitimate charities that's great
sorry.
by. Sorry, Fatma, go.
It's okay. I remember Mr. Rogers' class of food banks. So yes, food banks. So the point in food banks, what I figured out is the government pays you back the amount you just invest on these people. So
Yeah.
it's actually a profitable thing, and it's like it's just this is also kind of a making money. Food banks, even if we give
Yes.
donation, there's it's like the money is going from us and they're getting the return from the government. So it's like it's not a donation, to be honest. It's like we are being used in that circle.
Yeah. And
How did you buy the food that you're saying the money is coming from us? You go and take the food freely.
Like an
So
investment.
are you buying the food?
Yeah, the government gives you back with the percentage, the amount
Yeah,
you
the
have
government give them back the money because they get the food, give it to others. You, when you go there to take food from them, do you pay?
Adobe or Wendy, you're
You
so
said?
here's the thing for the food banks, what they do is they will collect certain amount of donation and they're gonna give it to the people. The amount that they have invested, they're going to give to the government. They're going to give the list of the amount they have spent on the food banks. So what the government does, it returns you with what you have spent on the poor people, on the food banks. So this is like a money-making circle. That's what I got from Mr. Rogers' last class. I'm not sure as far as I remember. So yeah. Am I right, Mr. Reagus?
So sorry, because it was really choppy there. I didn't hear what you were saying about the food bank. My apologies.
Okay, I think we can figure this out.
So
This
what?
is
So based on, I know Mr. Rogers is highly involved with the food banks. So what was it that you understand of food banks again, please? And then I'll tell you if you're right or wrong.
Okay, the point I understand is when we give donation to the food banks.
Donation of money or food?
Yeah, that's what I'm confused. I'm talking about
Okay.
money not for food right now.
It
Okay.
was food.
Money, okay? Because
Yeah,
then I figured out that's how he said. Then they just give out the total amount that they have spent on the food banks or people, and they just give the slip to the government, and the government returns you what you have spent.
No.
That's not true.
No.
So can you just clear me that, because I got confused.
So Mr. Rogers would be the best one to specifically tell you how food banks work. I don't know the intricacies behind food banks. I know food banks do either you drop off food donations, non-perishable goods. So sometimes perishable goods that they can refrigerate and get rid of in a short period of time. Also, you can drop off a cash donations, right? So I'm just going to drop $20 off to a food bank as well. So what I think you're getting confused about is getting the tax receipt for the donation. Is that it?
Probably that would be the confusion.
Yes. So as Canadian citizens, and this was something that was established actually in the UK government and parliament back in 18 or 1700. They made it so that they wanted everyday people to continue to contribute to the betterment of society. So what they did is they created a tax deduction of your charitable contributions. So there are companies that ask you and tell you, actively say, hey, we participate in this, let's say the food bank. We participate in a automatic deduction from your wages to pool into a food bank donation at the end of the year. So you could say, okay, I want to deduct $20 per paycheck to go to the food bank. So if you get 26 paychecks a year, that's $520, which gets deducted from your paycheck which is government tax deductible against your earnings. So it's a way of saving taxes.
Right, right.
But
That's what he said. I think that's the
okay,
confusion. Yeah,
and
I
that
just
and that's with every charity in Canada. So if you give money to a not-for-profit and you get a tax receipt, that is tax deductible. You give it back. You can claim that on your taxes to not have to pay so much taxes. So that must be the part that you were a little bit. And again, it's a new thing. It's different because it doesn't happen in all countries. But generally, the ones part of the British Commonwealth, it does because it's been legislated as part of something for the charitable good of society. So that's a little bit there on the not-for-profit side, and that's again, generally speaking, how they work. But it's an interesting thing because again, and like I said, it's not to say that they don't do good, because there are a lot of not-for-profit charities that legitimately share out and are very transparent about where the money goes. Then you have the other ones that, again, like you said, you're a not-for-profit trying to raise funds to uh, put clean running water in these small villages in South Africa, South America, rural Canada, whatever it is. But you've built 3 wells over the last 2 calendar years, yet you're flying around in a $25 million private jet and have 3 luxury property homes, right? So you really have to understand how the whole dynamics of that work. And again, it's different in Canada than it is in the US because the regulations are a little bit more strict, but it's still the same general sort of lacks as to the opportunity to actually make good profit and good business. So again, if you're very, very passionate about something, whether it be animals, like you see a lot of these charitable animal groups, save the dogs south, borders, canines and borders, and all these sorts of ones where, again, it's generally speaking just one person behind a computer with a phone doing something out of the basement of their houses for the betterment of something, right? So for example, I could run a dog shelter or a save these animals out of let's say Jamaica, for example, right? And live and work in Jamaica, claim everything, my taxes, but I also get to claim my house rent, my transportation, my car, give myself a good, reasonable salary. And again, doesn't have to be anything luxurious like $100,000 a year, but if my charity is paying for my living and my gas and my car and my food on top of giving me a reasonable wage, I don't need to technically be making $100,000 a year. I could get by with a $30,000 a year salary, right? That's what I deem that I'm worth, and what my charity is going to pay me to do that, and then put the rest of the funds back into actual charity. So not for profit. Sorry, yeah, go on.
just one last. Okay,
Yeah,
so because I'm confused, coming here at different things, right? So what I found out, just what I this maybe could be out of the topic. So I'm talking about tips. So basically, wherever we go, we have to tip the employee, right? But
yeah.
they're getting their monthly, they're getting their wages. Why are the tips so important?
Uh, so the tips are so important because, and again, Canada is different than the US because
Mm-hmm.
there are certain states where people work for no wage. The only money they make are the tips. And in Canada, for now, you legally can't pay somebody less than the minimum wage in Canada. But up until about 5 or 6 years ago, the minimum wage in Canada was only $8, even might have been less than that. It's only hit double digits into the tens, I think, in the last 8 to 10 years. And it's gone up substantially in the last 3 to 5. But prior to that, minimum wage in Canada was only somewhere between, I want to say, $6.50 to $9. I can't remember. It's been a while for me, right? I think minimum wage now, if anybody knows, can correct me if I'm wrong, is like 14.25, 15.
No, probably 15, 14.75.
Yeah, right. So again, which is great now. I couldn't, imagine making 14.75 at a university. So the fact that minimum wage is that much better now, but it's kind of like it was that custom back in the day because a lot of servers only lived off of minimum wage plus the tips, which I mean, still minimum wage now plus tips is based on today's inflation barely enough to get by, right? So, we're at 9:45 right now. You guys don't have to log out, but you can turn your cameras and microphones off. Let's come back at 10 o'clock and finish off the class, okay? All right, we'll see you in a bit.
Think you can write notes on a piece of paper, or you can just close your eyes. But I'd like you to visualize a community that you care about. And I'd like you to think about why you care about that community. I'd like you to think you travel around a little bit. Go to the places you like to go. Travel to other places that you know you might like to go. Just kind of think through why you care about that community. Just take a couple seconds to do that yourself. Now I'd like you to think of the role that nonprofits might play in that community that you care about. I'd like you to think about what nonprofits you might be aware of. Some of you will know a lot of nonprofits. Some of you may not know many at all. Please don't make judgments on your awareness of nonprofits. They're there and they're very involved. It's just a choice whether we get involved or not. So with that said, the reality is that we are all stakeholders in our community and in the nonprofits that serve that community. There are so many different stakeholders that are involved in so many different things. And the reality is a stakeholder is just simply someone that has a care or concern about something. So these nonprofits are there and they're working in our community, and we need to ask ourselves why. Simon Sinek gave a talk in 2009, a TED Talk, where he talked about the importance of why. And when he said this, he says the why often differentiates companies from others. And so when it comes to a nonprofit, we need to ask him, what's the why? And so when we look at that, the interesting thing is most often nonprofits, there's a lot of passion and commitment there. There's oftentimes a clear understanding of the need that they serve. And so we just need to understand what that why is. And so why do nonprofits exist in the first place? Well, that goes back all the way to the American colonization, where people were willing to work together for the betterment of society in general. So the need for nonprofits has always been there. And GuideStar.org, which is a leading provider of information related to nonprofits, says that there are just over 1.8 million active nonprofits in the United States today. So what does that look like in a community like Rapid City, where most of us call home? In the state of South Dakota, 1,937 nonprofits registered on the GuideStar.org website. In the Black Hills, the surrounding area of the Black Hills, over 1,000. Rapid City itself, city proper, 691. You take an estimated census of approximately 74,000 people, divided by 691 nonprofits in our community, and that's about 1 for every 106 people. Oftentimes, nonprofits are referred to as charitable, religious, or educational organizations, but there are many different categories that they fall into. And so that's where we're going to talk about what does those nonprofits do and how can we potentially be involved? How can we help them? What would we do to help them? How could we help them? What would we do when we're talking about what that help might look like? I encourage planning and evaluation. And what that means is planning is putting together a plan, and that can be a simple plan or a large plan. And evaluation is determining the significance or worth of something, usually by careful study or appraisal. So in this situation, we have a map, and maybe this will help us understand what planning and evaluation looks like. We use a map to show ourselves where we're at, and to decide where we want to go, and then how do we get there. An example of how planning and evaluation would not work is Alice in Wonderland when she was talking to the Cheshire Cat. She asked the cat, which way should she go? And he asked, which way do you want to go? And she said, I don't know. And he says, well, it doesn't really matter then, does it? So when we say planning and evaluation, nonprofits need to determine where they are, where they want to go, and how they're potentially going to get there. That would be our map analogy. Two other simple analogies that will help you understand what planning and evaluation might look like or how it fits together would be breathing. Breathing is rhythmic and it's constant, in and out, in and out. Planning and evaluation. Planning and evaluation. They go together. Just like if you were fixing yourself something to eat, you wouldn't call it a sandwich if it didn't have a piece of bread on top and one on the bottom. And so by its very definition, to sandwich something means to put it in between two existing entities or pieces of bread. So I'm encouraging nonprofits to consider how planning and evaluation could be those slices of bread that the activities and efforts fit into. And the level of planning and evaluation, that takes a wide spectrum. Let's think about some of the different ways you can do planning and evaluation. In today's world, we can do small events and we can do large. I remember in the military where we would have large briefings and debriefings, and we would just be big plans, big evaluations. But I also remember soldiers, like 5 to 10 soldiers, working on a movement to contact, where we would literally plan in the dirt with pieces of sticks and grass or whatever, and we would put together a plan, and then we would evaluate it by what the military calls an after-action report, which is simply what went well, what didn't go so well, and what will we do differently in the future. Those are how we can just simply go from the small to the big. In the business world, there are many different kinds of planning and evaluation systems, processes, and methodologies that can be used. Too many to tell you right now in this speech. But what I would tell you is that if a business is not doing planning and evaluation, they're probably not going to be a business for very long. That's the reality.
It just froze. Hello? Hello?
Frozen here as well.
Oh, I thought it was my internet.
Even I thought that
No,
was Wi-Fi. I was like, oh my God.
it's been freezing all morning. When even Mr. Dyke was speaking, it was just cutting in and out.
All right. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. I all of a sudden lost signal and then everything rebooted. So, let me go back to the point, I think about a minute before that happened in that video. Yeah, my apologies for that. I have no idea what happened there. Go back up here, open that up. Video. Oh, you need sound. Nope, sound. Let's try this again.
Look at that.
Are we
Let's
good?
look at some examples of how that might look in the actual nonprofit world. And this simple and these learning examples that we'll use, we're going to look at a spectrum or a life cycle that starts with emerging, goes through developing, and ends at established. Simply an illustration to give us an idea of where that nonprofit might be in its growth and development. So our first example is starting out. This is where you're a nonprofit and you're just getting ready to go. This is where we have to be honest with ourselves about what our nonprofit is doing and how we're going to do it. In this situation, oftentimes, it takes 3 board members to start a nonprofit. I've seen too many examples of where that's the founder or the visionary, their spouse, and their best friend. All right? If those are the only 3 people that you can get on your board of directors at that time, I would encourage you to maybe take a step back, gather some support, put together a team, and through planning and evaluation, the reality is that you may not have the skills, the knowledge, skills, and ability, the KSAs, to do what you're saying you want to do. And that's okay. Be at peace with that. Be patient with the fact that you will more than likely be a nonprofit sometime, but you have to be realistic about how many people you can get involved and what level they're going to be involved with you. So that's an example of starting out. Our next one is finding a path forward. You have a nonprofit that the board and the leadership gets together and they decide what the vision and the mission of that organization is. They determine what the objectives are, how they're going to handle the day-to-day activities. That's planning. But if we don't evaluate what we're doing and we don't look at the results that we're receiving, we won't be able to understand how it's going. And when I say that, in this situation, let's say that these were all established, but the evaluating was not done. What happens is, in the military, it was called mission creep, which is where our objectives, our agreed upon objectives, start to creep out on us and they start to grow beyond what we're capable of doing. So in this situation, the executive director is in many things, the evaluation is not being done, board members start to pull away, leadership starts to diminish, the organization starts to collapse in. That's an example of how important planning and evaluation is when you're just getting started. Our next example is one that a lot of nonprofits are involved in, and that's events. And these are important activities and efforts that these nonprofits are making. And a lot of times we'll have a planning committee, and so you'll put together a planning committee and you'll say, let's make this event the best we can make it. And that's great. And those people are passionate about making that event happen. But if we don't determine what the objectives are of that event, and we don't understand what the success criteria is, then how will we know what we did was what we needed to do? So in that situation, we have to evaluate. We have to stop and look at what we did and determine if we met the objectives and criteria of that event. And we have to do that in close proximity as well. We can't wait until next year when this event comes back around, and this is the event that we do every year at this time of year, and we're going to just wait and we'll just let the planning committee fire it up again. That would be, taking us back to a map analogy, that would be like us going somewhere, working there for a long period of time, and then determining that we're not where we were supposed to be, we don't know how we got there, and we don't know how to get where we were supposed to go in the first place. It doesn't work. So that's why you have to evaluate in close proximity to your planning events or your events that you are involved in. Planning for the future. You have a board. Now we're moving more towards an established board. They've got goals and objectives and ideas about what it's like. They've got the people on the board that will help them get there. The reality is, though, is that maybe they're happening on a day-to-day basis that are stopping you from getting to where you want to go. And then we have to continually do planning and evaluation, not just for the long term, but for the immediate term too, to tell us what we're doing right now. In this situation, there's so many day-to-day activities that are coming up, so many emergencies, that the nonprofit can't get to the future that they're projecting to. They have the people and it's not getting there. And so that's an example of how you're realistic about where you're at and what you're doing. Last example is on the other end of the spectrum. We started a small board that maybe didn't have the skills, knowledge, skills, and ability to get going. And now we have an established nonprofit with a very professional board, high quality caliber people that are very passionate about their involvement. At this end of the spectrum, though, what can happen sometimes is if we're not doing good, strong planning and evaluation, sometimes we can just go with the flow. Sometimes people are just there maybe in title and position only. And that doesn't help either. We have to be able to discuss what's going on. We have to be able to talk through the challenges that we're facing. We have to be able to work through the plans and the evaluation of those plans and look at what's going on. So if you have a board that's just maybe going with the flow, or might be what's considered a yes board, that's an area that maybe we need to work on too. Those are all these things are just to tell us that the opportunity to work through what we're doing. In this situation, remember that visualization exercise we did. Remember all the great things that are happening in our community. Remember all the wonderful things that these nonprofits are doing to make it the community that we care about. Planning and evaluation will make us that much stronger. It'll help all the stakeholders in that organization have a better understanding of what they're doing and how they're doing it. It kind of ties everything together. And this is where a potential pivot can be made. And when I say pivot, maybe it's time to just kind of stabilize what we're currently doing before we move on to anything else. Maybe it's time to let go of something or reorganize something before we move on to anything else. Maybe it's time to potentially partner with another nonprofit or possibly even merge with them. And maybe it's just time to shut that nonprofit down. The main point is through strong planning and evaluation, we have an opportunity to improve and we have an opportunity to potentially pivot. So how do we do that? Through volunteerism is one of the key lifebloods of nonprofits. The reality, though, is that volunteerism is changing in America. A lot of people want to be involved in shorter-term efforts or efforts that they're passionate about, things that they have the knowledge, skills, and ability to be involved in, things that they want to be involved in, and nonprofits need to respect that. How do they find that help? By asking for it, by letting people know that they would use that help in planning and evaluation. Maybe somebody's coming alongside you just to help with the planning and evaluation. They don't need to be on the board. They don't need to be a time volunteer. They just want to help in that specific event or activity or effort. Maybe they have that passion to do that. These are all things that we can do. And when it comes to volunteers and their time, we need to think about it as if somebody was making a large financial donation to a nonprofit. We need to be honest with them about how much do we need and what do we do with it? How would we use that time and ability? How would we get them engaged? How do we plug them into a place that fits for them and fits for the organization? How do we watch for that fit that will just kind of tie it all together and give us an opportunity to work together? Our call to action is this. Consider how your nonprofit would benefit from planning and evaluation. I encourage you to have nonprofits share with you what they are and how you might be involved, even if that means just you being more aware of how they are helping make the community that you care about. Thank you.
So it's an interesting video. I know it went into a little bit more in-depth sort of information that it's pertaining to any of you right now. But you heard kind of what he talked about, having a mission, vision, and a focus, the right people behind you, the right idea, knowing what you stand for, that sort of stuff. Does it really sound like a not-for-profit organization is a whole heck of a lot different than being a successful small business?
Actually, what I found is it's just the points for small businesses and non-profit businesses, there is no much difference because it also includes planning, executing, and all that. So I was a bit confused in that point. Like the non-profit, the main point is we need to raise out what non-profit business we want to do. That's the point.
Yep. What and it's not so much just what not for profit business do you want to do.
Mhm.
Again, in order to be a business of any sort, you have to take in money. You have to have stakeholders. You have to have people who are
Yes.
going to invest in what
Yes.
it is that you're doing. So
Yes.
a not-for-profit is identical to a small business in the sense that in
Yes.
order to keep your doors open and do what you want to do, you still have to make money. You still have
Yes.
to bring money in the
That
door.
that's the point that I was raising out.
Yeah, right?
It's
So
the same. The fact is just we are just focusing on non-profit,
yeah,
not having a business set up.
exactly. You're a,
Oh, sorry,
a
sorry.
social
Only
good, a
those
social service.
are. Hmm.
Yeah, exactly, right? So that's exactly what you're looking at when we talk about not-for-profit organizations. No, technically they're not making money at it, or they're not making much money at it, but they are still making money and they're still in the business of trying to get money into the door. So when he was talking about when you have that fundraiser, if you don't know what that fundraiser's ultimate goal is or what you're doing, it's like having a product that does nothing. It's like having a product called a widget, and then either nobody knowing about what the widget is or what the widget does, but not marketing it, not having a purpose for it, right? I see a hand up. Who is that? That is Fernanda. Nanda. Yes.
Yes, I think when it's a non-profit, you are selling an idea. When you're a small company, you're selling a product or a service, it's easier. But when you're a non-profit, you're selling an idea, so the person are not leaving a product or a service home. So
Exactly. What
you have to have a better marketing behind this, right?
you absolutely do, because again, here's the thing. When you walk into a store, any store, and you hand over money to somebody at a cash, you want to receive either a product or a service. Plain and simple. You're either going to get something physically back from that cash, whether it be your cell phone or a service. Let's say it was massage, physiotherapy, I don't know, you name it. Uh, Larissa, a tattoo artist, you're getting something back. You're paying money, you're getting something back. But when you're talking about not for profit, you're literally giving money, and what you're getting back is that warm, cozy feeling that that money is going to something good, which is a little, it's much more different and difficult to part ways with that money, right? So when you're not for profit, and then that is essentially your hustle that you have to do all the time, raising money in order to do the good service that you want to do and keep the doors open in order to do it. That is really, really tough. So that's what he's talking about in the struggles about a not for profit. But all in all, at the end of the day, simply to say that is that it's still a very tough business and industry to get into, um because
Very tough. I totally agree to that because we need a very logical mind to find out about something that the people can be very attractive to. It does not sell so easily.
no, exactly, right. And that's a very great point, because again, if I'm an investor or stakeholder, I need to see that I'm getting something back. Something. You got to reassure me that it's not just going to rainbows, unicorns, and fairy tales, right? So that's kind of the key thing there. But I'm going to end on that note because it's 10:35. I'm going to give you a little bit of a break between next class. We'll jump back in here at 10:45 for, I believe we've got special topics up next. All right, so we'll give you guys all 10 minutes to relax, grab an extra coffee, a snack, do what you got to do, and we'll log back in at 10:45 for special topics. Okay? Okay, we'll see you in a bit.